Now, when it comes to the Prime Minister, surprise, surprise, the polls don't go well, but the media loved when he said this about those who just don't believe that either the Voice is a good idea or there's enough information for them to give a blank cheque to the Parliament to change the way the country works.
All the predictions offered by the Chicken Littles of the past.
And fair campaigns to counter.
Looking for every nuance to try to push out there what essentially will be a scare campaign.
So again, anything other than the narrative you get from the government, reinforced through the education, through woke institutions or the Karens on the internet, it is not even worth engaging. You don't have to say, well, hang on, no, let me explain why that idea is wrong. Here's my counterpoint. No, Chicken Littles, they're all crazy. They don't know what they're talking about. And a perfect example of how the left is able to engage in debate by basically just blah, blah, blahing their way through the battle of ideas, look no further than Linda Burney. Linda Burney is the Indigenous Affairs Minister. Again, this is not exclusively about the Voice, but this one minister and one issue gives us an idea of how they engage with everything, from the cost of energy transition to the reality of older people not being able to supplement their income if they get anywhere near retirement age. Perfect example. Here is how Linda Burney dismisses people with legitimate concerns about an idea that the federal government is trying to put on the table. One word that gets used over and over again by her is
disinformation and misinformation. It won't be on things like taxation or defence and some of the other nonsense that's been sprouted. There is enormous amounts of misinformation.
So the first thing, if you suggest that there's a problem with an idea that the big state has, you're practising misinformation. Now, because there is some factual basis in your opinion, right or wrong as it may be on the Voice in particular, they can't say you're wrong, they can't say you're a liar, they just say it's misinformation. And the media, they use words like this to hammer home the objectives of the left.
Distractions and misinformation.
Misinformation.
All of the misinformation.
And then there's another one that Linda Burney again uses here. When you ask questions about, will the national day that we have celebrated for most of our lives, January 26, be something that the Voice will have an opinion on and potentially, remember the Prime Minister said that it would be a brave politician to go against their advice, would this be the way that the people who've protested in the streets for years now about Australia Day will get what they want? Again, when you talk about this, rather than saying no or good point, now let me go off and think about it, or here's the evidence that says what you're saying is wrong. It used to be a battle of ideas, now it's a battle of feelings, or the way that they fight away facts or fight away concerns is they just throw feelings at the problem with a fire hose. There's another word that gets used. This one, again from Linda Burney.
The Voice will not be bothered by culture wars. It will not be involved in culture wars. This is not about culture wars. This is about closing the gap.
Now, again, if your belief is that Australia has a national day, January the 26th, and regardless of whether you are black, white or brindle, whether you were born here or flew here, or you're someone who has a family connection that goes back 6 months or 60,000 years, you think that's the day that we should be able to proudly say, we are one, we are free, we are Australians, and it's an opportunity for us to be united. No, that's a culture war, so we're not even engaging in the conversation. The media, again, just repeats the talking points of the government.
The Prime Minister has accused critics of the Voice to Parliament of trying to start a culture war.
He's trying to start a culture war.
He's made this issue into a political one by talking about culture war.
And about culture wars.
Culture wars have always underestimated Australia, subjected to a culture war.
Anthony Albanese is accusing some critics of an Indigenous Voice to Parliament of spreading lies and stoking a culture war.
And then when all else fails, if you can't say that somebody's valid concerns are based on misinformation or that you're engaging in a pointless culture war, then you just mention the Orange Man.
When you go into that polling booth on your own with your moral compass on, you will know what you're voting for. Those people that are against this are going backward. Every bit of disinformation and misinformation and scare campaigns that exist in this debate, so that we can move the dial on a national shame. I fear that the No campaign are importing American-style Trump politics to Australia. Its aim is to polarise people, and its weapon of choice is misinformation.
That was the whole bag, the whole word salad. Now, the way that it used to work was that you had an idea. You simply say, I think this pen will solve all the world's problems. Here's the reasons why, A, B and C. Well, I disagree. I think this pen is the way that it should be done. Example, A, B and C, people decide. But when you move away from a conversation or a debate about the merits of something or the potential problems of something, and then you start falling into misinformation, culture wars, or Trumpian-style politics, you're not actually involved in a debate. You're just simply trying to run out the clock on the people who disagree with you and desperately hope that the voters that have been indoctrinated by a school system, that are too scared to speak because of the Karens on social media, or are swamped by the message from big business, will just fall in line. So put simply, the next time you're involved in any conversation with a lefty and they say any of those three things, guess what? You're probably right. Because if you were wrong, they'd be able to point out why.